returning to this painting in particular, entitled Awake, it looked very, very different from when I started it, as many of my paintings do. They go through usually many layers, and sometimes it'll look almost complete, and then it'll seem to me that that's not what it's meant to be, and I just let go. Like, I don't have an attachment to it, because again, I try to be very open to what wants to happen. To me, that's the really exciting possibility, is that something wants to happen through me. And so I try not to get stuck in my head with how I think it should look, and in particular with it being overly perfect. And that's been a huge source of healing for me in my art. And from what others tell me, it's very liberating for them too when they own my pieces, is to have this reminder of like what is so raw and beautiful about being raw and imperfect, and yet also complete and whole, as a painting is. This painting was included in a book that I did with a friend and colleague of mine, Tara Rice Simpkins, and I had a deadline to get this painting done to be included in that book, and I'd been working for a few nights just to have these uninterrupted stretches of time. I have young children, and so I would stay up at night so I could really get into my groove and really like pour myself and channel that kind of energy into painting. Because whenever I do anything, I always start with, please, a prayer. Please let me remember that I am the vessel and not the source. And I really wanted some long stretches of uninterrupted time to be able to do that kind of work. And so it was the last night. I needed to have this painting ready to go at 7 in the next morning to take to the photographer. And I finished 2, and it was 3 or 3:30, and I was pretty tired and working on this one. And again, it looked very different, and I could just feel myself going from this like very open vessel to this very constricted place. And I just knew that I was no longer in the space of this wonderful, open, channeling love and like loving the process and feeling intensely alive. Instead, I was back to, oh God, I hope I don't screw it up. Like, it was looking really good. I was starting to like it, and I just wanted to get it done. And so, yeah, it was just so close. And so I was just making like my whole body was, I was using a small brush and making these like small tiny adjustments, and then like wiping it quick with a rag and water, and just, it was painstaking and agonizing, and not at all like what I want my painting to be about. Even if I have the opportunity to have a painting in a book, it's not worth it to me if that's then what it does to my process is makes it become this, again, agonizing thing. I definitely pour a lot of love into things, but it's a labor of love, and it's not painful. So I did the thing that I thought I couldn't do at that point. I walked away, and I went and sat on my living room couch and just took some deep breaths and tried to figure out what was going on. And I realized I had an opportunity, because as Thomas More says, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And something said to me, Leah, this is really not about a book, and it's really not about finishing a painting. It's not about any one painting. This is about something much bigger. It is about how you are in the world and all the choices you have along the way to become more of who you are capable of being. And so focus instead on that, like redirect yourself to that. I have a sign on my wall that asks me the question, like, am I loving this? And then move to the love. So I took some deep breaths and made that shift and like opened myself again and said, okay, I trust you. I trust you. I trust myself. I trust what wants to come through me to be right. And I turn over being scared of trying to being afraid of screwing something up and ruining it, because actually I choose to believe that's not even possible. I choose to believe there are no wrong marks, that it's all there for a reason. And I just choose to be open. And so give me the next thing to do. And I didn't get like a word answer, but I got this like urge for like red, like the cadmium red that you see in that painting. And part of me was like, there's not a lot of red in the painting that I'm doing, but I'm like, put that aside, go back to this open place, red. So I came back in here, I took the red that seemed to be calling to me, like squirted out a huge glob of it on the canvas, started to pick up my tiny brush again. Something told me that wasn't right. And so I just came from like the gut, from my center, and I scooped up a bunch of that red paint and I just smeared it across the top of the painting. And then it was like I became a person possessed because I was scooping up that paint, smearing it on, and then I was like, teal. And without even really thinking teal, just drawn to that colors. And squirt and scoop and smear, and then like just using my hands most of the time, sometimes a big foam brush, oftentimes just my fingers and my hands, like wiping them off quickly from my clothes, like this jacket. And then just like moving, like always like staying with my heart, like, and going quickly enough that I was always just 4 steps ahead, like 4 steps ahead of my head, of my mind, of my thinking, because I could feel the pressure back there. I could feel the invitation to, oh, you're ruining it. And I was like, nope, I'm trusting. And I'm going with this, and you know what? It feels fabulous. It feels intensely right. There's no way that anything that feels this right can make a wrong mark. And so that's where I came from. And then I also had this moment of realization, backing up for a minute, when I'm on the couch, that when I talked about having that opportunity, the opportunity I had was not to come from this small place of like holding myself back so then I didn't screw up. I had the opportunity to choose to come from my whole heart, like just to whoosh, bring everything that I had to it, wholeheartedly, nothing held back, just go for it. And I thought, that's what I want to bring to the world. That's the kind of energy I want to give to everyone, to my art, my clients, my everyone, family, and no holding back. This holding back is just not for me. It's too small for me, and it's too small for anyone. And what I think the world needs more of anyway is wholeheartedness, whether it's in art or an individual's life. So again, it was that wholeheartedness. And so I also, at one point, like I just squirted out a bunch of like dark Prussian blue paint and grabbed my paintbrush and scribbled on the canvas. Like it just felt like a prayer or a mantra or something to me. My whole heart, and then parentheses, you have it. And I'm like, that's what this is about. This is my offering, like my whole heart. It's not about perfection. It's not about not screwing up, getting it right. It's not about any of that. It's about this like pouring in, pouring through of me wholeheartedness. So I wrote that, and then again, kind of was in that dump paint out, scoop it up, put it here, put it there, and I just went like my body knew where it wanted to put different colors on the canvas, and sometimes it was like making fingerprint marks, and other times I'd grab a brush and like scrub things out and blend them in, and I'd grab a rag to like blend other things in, and something in me knew what to do, knew what it wanted to do, and was free to do it once I let go of trying to get it right. Like it's so much bigger what we have to offer than trying to get it right. And then at one point, I also just had like this flash of a thought of some sketches I'd done, again in this book during springtime, of some beautiful trees on campus that were in bloom, and there were these tiny 2 little blooms together, just so tiny, and I walked by them often on my walks to campus, and I thought, gosh, there's so much beauty in the world that like you couldn't even take it in. I mean, there are 2 blossoms that just I fell in love with, and there are thousands of blossoms on that one tree, times how many trees on that campus. Like it's just devastatingly overwhelming to think about how much love and goodness there is. So I was drawn to these 2 blossoms. I sketched them, in my book for later, and I had that flash when I was doing all this wild painting of those blossoms, and so without even it was almost gone. It went by so fast. So I grabbed a sketchbook quick. I poured a bunch of white paint, and like without lifting my brush, I did that one that's over to my right here. I did that one, picked up the brush again, and like painted in her sister, and they just seemed to me to be like, ooh, here we are, like one just unfurling and being her like big, bold, beautiful self, but she's so tiny in real life, and the other one is like open and saying hello, and I just like did it, and like without nothing careful about it, they just wanted to be there, and yeah, and so I can show you a little more close up what some of the details of the painting look like, but that's the story. You can see a few of the words. I let some of the my whole heart you have it show through. I don't really necessarily, I paint a lot of words into my paintings, and a lot of them get covered up, but I don't think it matters because part of it is putting me in the zone of like, this is what I'm offering. Like in all my paintings, I always paint like you matter, or variations on that. Your voice matters, your story matters, your spirit matters, because I feel like that's an energy that I really need, and I know so many other people need it too. And I do think that that is then like part of the gift of my painting to others, is that something about that flows through and will open them and allow them to be more free and compassionate with themselves and loving in their lives. But I liked the mystery of, I felt, again, was just trusting that covering it up was the right thing to do. And then I liked how it was kind of peeking through like that too. There's a little mystery, that the painting has a history now and layers, and now a lot more about its layers and its history. I'll show you more closely here some details. I wish there was some way where like viewing these online through photographs was more closely like the experience of seeing them in real life, because even photographically, they just don't translate quite the same. Although, so if you ever want to come visit me and see them in person, please do. You'll see feathers there in the lower corner. There end up being a lot of feathers in my art. It's another important symbol or motif for me. So yes, thanks so much for this, being interested in the story of this painting in particular, and also being interested in my coaching, my art. I'm happy to talk to you if you have any questions, or you just want to visit about this process. And finally, I came with Awake again, the title, as more like an intuitive thing, because that's my visceral response to this painting, is that like something about it like awakens me to remember and puts me in that place of knowing why I'm really here. Sometimes we fall asleep in life, and then this is one of those things where then you're like, awake, and now I remember why I'm here. I'm no longer confused. I know I am here. And I feel like those little flowers, that's sort of the vibe that they give off to. That's what they're about too. So thank you once again, and you can find out more about me at my website, www.leahcb.com. Have a wonderful day.